watch this. So and it'll now be in the Google Chat GPT.
I'm gonna do this the best.
Do it in the form of song. Okay, go.
The best.
1, 2, 3.
Okay. No. Pink blazing. Pink blazing is when a hiker chooses to route their hike to follow a woman. So they want to always be camped next to this woman. They want to be in the same shelters. They're going to hike the same miles. They're going to take breaks at the same time. They're going to, that they're going to go into town together. They're going to be like, hey, you got to go into town. Yeah, I got to go into town. Let's go into town.
I'll make sure you're safe.
Which also, as a woman alone, never go into town by yourself. But you would recognize, if you have any inkling of men, what is pink blazing and what is people looking out for people.
I think it should be a term applied everywhere, by the way. It should be applied everywhere. And I just want to say, guys, if you see a woman exercising, she's not trying to meet men. Period. Just leave them alone. In any type of exercise. How about if you see a woman, just leave her alone?
Can I ask a really dumb question? Because that's kind of what I do. You mentioned a woman should not go into town alone. I would think that is the one place where it should be safer, as opposed to alone by themselves. But why wouldn't that? Why would not town by alone? What am I missing here? Sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly you don't want to do any, groups are strong, but I just, what makes that unique?
So
dumb question.
There's not a dumb question. Not a dumb question. I was always taught, thanks to B-Man and other hikers who I met on the trail, that I should always strive to
Plan
camp.
B, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I should always strive to camp 10 miles from a road crossing. And that's going to put me at a far enough distance that any riffraff or, anyone who's looking to cause any sort of trouble, knowing that the trail is there, they're not going to go 10 miles into the woods to look for me. If I'm camped next to a road and a car slows down, I'm freaked out. I'm alone, and I'm, you know what I mean? So the other parts about specifically about going into town is, first of all, how to get to town. So when you're hiking the trail, town is usually several miles from the trail. Right. So when you get to a road crossing, you're usually at the highest point in the road and the lowest point on the trail, because you're in the mountains.
Right.
And in order to get to town, you got to go the full way down the mountain. Yeah. That typically requires hitchhiking, unless you walk alone. Regardless if I'm walking alone on the side of the road or sticking my thumb out, if I'm by myself, I'm in a state of danger as a woman alone.
Sure.
And there are people who know exactly who's walking up and down that road and what they look like if they're off the trail. Like, they become a target that they know to look for. It's like polar bears looking for penguins.
Locals absolutely know that the trail is there. And this comes in two ways, right? So here's one thing. As a hiker, you're praying for a road crossing so that there's trail magic there, right? You're going to get to that road crossing, and there's going to be a couple sitting in lawn chairs with a cooler of PBR, cooking hot dogs on a little grill. And you're going to walk up and they're going to be like, welcome, here's a, have fun. Do you need a ride into town? This is called trail magic.
How often is this? First off, I want to commend these people, but how often would you say?
These days, it is so abundant in the South. Like, there is so much trail magic in the South because the trail is heavier down there. Not as many people have dropped off. And these are a lot of times thru hikers who are coming back and paying it forward. They're trying to help other hikers keep going. And a lot of times they're locals. A lot of times they're hostel owners. They're bringing the hikers to their hostels. They're letting the hikers do work for stays. They're it's a community. I mean, it's a full on every part community. One of the most famous trail angels out there is Miss Janet. So Miss Janet is famous. She has a bus, right? She has a bus and she'll drive up and down the Appalachian Trail. Now, Miss Janet is an angel. You see that bus, you hear that horn, and you're coming to a road crossing, man, woman, gay, straight. Like, you see that bus and you're like, that is safety. That is home. Miss Janet will make sure that I get what I need safely. So you get to know trail angels. You get to know trail angels. There's other in Duncannon, Trail Angel Mary. Trail Angel Mary is an angel. She takes hikers to her home, lets them stay at her house, feeds them breakfast.
Wow.
Holy smokes. Now that's like, yeah, hold on. Yeah, that's amazing.
There's a whole, it's a community. It's a large community. It feels large when you're in it. But at the same time, you talk to all of these people as a woman alone, they're going to tell you, be careful. They're going to tell you, don't camp near the roads.
Right.
Go 10 miles into the woods. These are women. These are angels.
Like fantastic advice.
It's so amazingly simplistic the way you put it. And it's, you just don't think about something like that. It's like, your average, a predator isn't going to go 15 feet into, they're going to stop me like, that's too much work. Like, that is crazy that's the mentality, but it makes so much sense when you think about it. Like, I don't want to take us down a huge downer, but like, yeah, you just totally spelled it out for me. I appreciate that. Cause that's like one of those things where, I mean, anybody, female or male, like, just go in the trail, make sure you're off the beaten path, and I guess not off the beaten path, but yeah, that's crazy. Anyway, sorry. That's just, that's amazing. So
yeah, definitely you want to stay on the trail. Oh, and that's the other thing. So another way that hikers look out for one another, you get to a shelter, there's always a log. You sign your name to the log. Now, here's something interesting. My trail name is Joe Cool. And I've always chosen to spell that Joe, which is typically the more masculine version of how you would spell Joe. Like, growing up, my name shortened, I was always called Joe. It was always spelled J-O because that's, I guess, the more feminine version of it.
Women can't handle that extra E,
I definitely can. But
I think you can. I believe
early on, someone had made the comment to me, and I never thought about it until later on in the trail. They considered me signing my name Joe. They were like, oh, are you doing that so that people don't know that you're a woman hiking alone? Sure. And I was like, whoa.
There are a lot of female authors that use like a first initial, middle initial, last name, or a totally made up name, a pen name, because if they're selling sci-fi or certain genres of book, it's just easier to make people believe you could be a man instead of a woman, because it works. Just a simple name, slight change. Yeah. Yeah.
Is that why people spell like Jeffrey with a G, so nobody wants to talk to them? Like, oh, his name with a G. Fuck that guy in particular. Right?
Yeah, no.
So,
nobody likes
makes
that.
sense.
Wait. That's one of our first guests on the show was Jeffrey Asmus.
Yeah, but he would say fuck himself too. Like, I mean,
he would. He probably hates it. Hey,
demonetized.
Demonetized. I wanted to talk to you about your trail name. How do you get it, and where were you on the trail? How far were you along on the trail when you got it?
How do you get a trail name?
You don't have to tell us how you specifically got yours, because there probably is something in there.
How anyone
gets a big laugh on this
screen.
Wait,
you said
right now.
Wait, I am allowed to say the F word, right?
You can fucking say fuck.
Because here's the advice that I was given.
Queen of the forest?
You can build 1,000,000 houses, but if you fuck one goat, you're a goat fucker. So when you're on the trail, it's like the first thing you do that someone recognizes you for. That's going to be your trail name. So And you can, a lot of times if someone's like trying to force a name on you, they're like, I think you're this, I think you're that. And you're like, no. And you pass it by. But then like the next day you accidentally wipe your ass with poison ivy and someone's like, poison panties. That's it. You don't have a choice. That is what you're known as.
That'll be somebody talking about you at your funeral by that name. Poison panties. What? Tell me that story.
So it's a cautionary tale, really.
So do you want to share your story, Queen of the Forest, or?
You know what? Mine's a little bit.
No,
it's a little bit sad, but the end part is basically I was dressed in all black, leaning against a tree, smoking a cigarette with black sunglasses on, and someone was like, "What's up with Joe Cool over there?" Because I wasn't talking to anyone. And I was like,
that checks out.
Sure.
That'll be my name. I accept. That's all it took.
I was literally going to say, trapped in a loony bin literally said, smoking Camel Wides. I was going to say that. I go, Joe Cool. Was that because you were smoking unfiltered, Camel Wides? No. Yeah. Same,
the actual reference is to Joe Cool, Snoopy's alter ego, Joe Cool. Yeah.
It had to be Snoopy because Snoopy rocks.
Yeah. It was the sunglasses. It was not the cigarette. But I've gotten that a lot. It's the camel.
Looney Bin and I, we figured it out. That's what it is. That's canon. That is canon.
I saw someone else say though, Queen of the Forest. So much later Elliot on, and Elliot was actually with me the first time I ever stepped foot on the AT.
Awesome.
That was in Grayson's.
Thanks for showing up, Elliot. Glad you're here.
The best man in my wedding, right there.
That's awesome. We're going to get to the end of the trail, and I have a question for you. But continue. Queen of the Forest. I got to hear this. I'm like a little kid.
So, the gear that I hiked with, I started out with a tent. It was a 2-person tent, and I had a sleeping pad that was inflatable. Mind you, this guy that I met that promised to get me on the trail had also hooked me up with some awesome gear. So like my base weight was like 13 pounds or something without food and water. Like that's all I had. Food and water. I was probably rocking like 27, 28 pounds total. Like that was wild back then. This is over 10 years ago. Like that was light. That was go light. So I have this sleeping pad that blows up, that folded up and slipped into this little sling, and it turned into a chair. Right. So I called that, that was my, my throne. Now I also have, are you ready for this? I'm going to put it on actually. This is my favorite piece of gear. This is my sleeping bag liner. And I use this like a baby blanket. And also like when I would get to camp, I would just wrap myself up in it. Or I would tie it around my waist like a skirt.
Yeah.
And so I had
you're not Snoopy, you're Linus.
I had this like look about me that was quite regal in camp, right? Regal. And then I would set up my tent. I enjoyed cowboy camping from very early on.
Can we say that? Is that acceptable?
Oh my gosh. So I would set up my tent, and I wouldn't set up the actual like tarp part of the tent if it wasn't raining. I would set up just the poles so that I could wrap my Christmas lights around it. Right. And I had these Christmas lights too. I had a set of Christmas lights that were battery powered. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had Christmas lights. I had this freaking throne. I had this freaking like body wrap thing that I put around myself. And so like people are like, oh, it's fucking Joe Cool, Queen of the Forest. Eventually I got a palace. I traded out my tent for a tarp. Because I wasn't
moving on up.
And yeah, my tarp was 11 feet by 7 feet. It was seal nylon, so it weighed less than a pound. But like it was an instant dry spot. And then I had a piece of a Tyvek, like the stuff they put on the sides of your houses, like when you're building a house. Okay. So I had a piece of Tyvek. That was my ground cloth. So I had my tarp, I had a piece of Tyvek on the ground, and then my amazing sleeping pad and my sleeping bag, which was 100% waterproof. And I know that because I got flooded out in it.
I mean, you never think about it until after it happens the first time, right? Like, am I in a bad area for water? It's never happened to me yet, but I don't look for it. Like, what happened?
That time, actually, B-Man was with me. He was visiting me. We were too close to a road crossing, number one. Too close to a creek during like a 3-day downpour, and decided to sleep in the same spot 2 nights in a row. So that's what happened. The creek overflowed. We were totally flooded. Like, I woke up in the morning and all I remember is like reaching my arm out and it just being underwater. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm underwater. But inside of my bag, I was dry. Like,
that's a great bag.
Wet.
It really is a great bag.
I know.
I mean, you said waterproof. Yeah. I figured like you had a little water on the toe, but no, that was
no. Waterproof. Yeah. And my sleeping bag, it was inflatable. So it kind of just floated a little bit there. It was fine.
You know, free ride. Have a great one. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful night. Be safe out there. Treat each other well.